Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the plan for the 10.1 Shadow Priest rework as it stands. So, for anyone who doesn't know, Dratnos recently did an interview with Morgan Day and Steve Danuser? I don't know how you say it. Anyway, he did an interview with these guys, and in this video, they talked about how they plan on reworking Shadow Priest in 10.1. I'll leave a link to this video in the description, and I'll also leave a link to this Wowhead article in the description where you can see all of the different changes that have been made to Shadow Priest on the 10.1 PTR. And I thought we'd just read through it and I'd kind of give you my thoughts. So first, let's start with what their thoughts are on the problems with Shadow Priest right now. So obviously they wouldn't change Shadow Priest if they thought that it was in a good spot. They think that it's not, and these are some of their key issues that they have with the spec. So let's read through those and see what they are. So first off, developers note, greetings, we have several changes coming to Shadow Priest talents and Embers of Neltharion that are aimed at addressing spec issues and adding new talent options. First bullet point, button bloat. Shadow has more rotational abilities than most other specializations. We're working to reduce this by having Mind Spike replace Mind Flay and removing Mind Sear. So I think that this button bloat is obviously a huge problem. This is something that Shadow Priests have been talking about for a while now, especially the Shadow Priest theory crafters. I know Public and Ellipsis both are huge proponents of there being too much button bloat for Shadow. And I mean, it's true. Like, if you're in your opener and you get procs on everything, you're just like, okay, what do I press now? I have to have like a seven different spell long list, priority list that I have to follow in my head to know what the correct button is to press. And it could be any of them at any given time, depending on certain things, right? So I agree with this, that, yeah, button bloat is a problem. Although I don't love how this sounds, right? So if anyone has been watching my videos for a while, then you'll know that I am a huge hater of Mind Flay and Mind Sear. I really, really dislike spells where you just sit there and channel, which you do with Mind Sear and Mind Flay. So I like the idea behind Mind Spike replacing Mind Flay and Mind Sear, or at least I like the idea behind getting rid of Mind Flay and Mind Sear and replacing them with something else. But I do not really like Mind Spike, so we're just going to have to see how this turns out. It's good that they have this on their radar, and the fact that they make this number one on their list, I think this is like them saying, listen, we're trying to listen at least. Whether we're doing a good job of listening or not is a different question. Next, we've got Mind Sear. We feel Mind Sear as a spender was a worthy experiment in Dragonflight, but the gameplay has not been as smooth as we envisioned. We are removing the spell and focusing Shadow's AoE kit further on Psychic Link. So I don't know how I feel about this one. I think that so the one of the big problems is a huge problem that Shadow Priest had back in Shadowlands with AoE was that we were casting Mind Sear, sitting there channeling Mind Sear while we press Searing Nightmare, and that felt pretty bad because we could only do damage to stuff that was packed really, really tight, and it felt bad because you had to channel Mind Sear to do it, right? So those were two bad things, and then their temporary fix, or at least their worthy experiment, as they call it, was that in Dragonflight, they decided to just get rid of the extra button of Searing Nightmare and just make it so that your Mind Sear, you just sit there and channel Mind Sear to spend Insanity, right? They buffed the damage of Mind Sear a lot, and then they made it so that it cost more Insanity. And then, yeah, it would just... so they took away Searing Nightmare, so they had to make Mind Sear cost Insanity, right? Is what I mean to say. But that doesn't get rid of like the bigger problem, which is that you have to sit there and channel to do AoE damage, and it also doesn't get rid of the problem that stuff has to be packed on top of each other really tight for you to do good damage. I mean that second problem of stuff being grouped tightly together is not a shadow specific problem. Like a lot of classes have that problem. There are many AOE abilities in the game that only hit a small area, right? So that's something that maybe needs like other design or is like good to be in the game. But the sit there and channel to do AOE damage, and especially when that's our main form of AOE damage, like that this is our only AOE spender, right? So when that's the case, it feels really bad. So I actually really like this change. I think it moves Shadow a lot closer to where it was back in like BFA, where Shadow has the potential to become like a spread AOE god, which would be really cool. We would move back towards being a dot class, and this should help with things like Mythic Plus, where you've got packs all over the place running around. While they're getting grouped, you can still do good damage, right? So I think this is a good change. Hopefully, we'll just have to see, I think. Next, flooded rotation. There are times in the rotation where several spells are competing to be cast due to proc frequency and overall insanity generation. We are adjusting some proc. We are adjusting some proc. I think that should say some proc frequencies and the insanity generation of several talents for a clearer rotational flow. So this is a good change in my opinion as well. Right now, it feels very weird playing Shadow Priest, especially in the opener where you want to get a spell like Void Torrent off, but Void Torrent, to use it the most efficiently, you want to use it when when you're not going to overcap on insanity, right? So there are times where you get up to like 90 insanity, your next spell is going to be a Devouring Plague that'll put you down low enough that you can get all of the insanity from Void Torrent. But then right before you press that Devouring Plague, you get a proc and you get the free Devouring Plague, which costs no insanity. And then you're like, okay, well, do I press another Devouring Plague to get rid of that insanity before I Void Torrent? Or do I just send it and overcap on insanity by 50? Anyway, so yeah, there are huge issues. And I think that the fact that they're pointing this out as a problem is really, really good. Because for sure, we have lots of issues with procs and things that make... there are memes out there. There have been memes like this for a couple expansions now, but there are memes out there of like the Shadow Priest priority list, and it's like 5 paragraphs long, and then you go look at something like a Frost Mage, and it's like, press this button unless you have this, and that's all you do. Whereas with Shadow, it's like, do this, except when this happens, and when this happens, and also if it's Tuesday, do this, and like a million different things. So it's a good thing that they're trying to change this, I think. Next, lack of distinct builds with updates to existing talents and some new talents. Interesting. We aim for more build-defining choices, such as investing in cooldowns, damage over time effects, critical damage. That's interesting to me. Or shadowy apparitions. So, basically what they're saying is, we don't want you to either be single target shadow or AoE shadow. We want you to be able to... And this is something that this is like the whole point of making the new talent trees for all of the classes, right? They want talents to be like meaningful choices that really determine like a different play style, right? So I think ideally, when you get on your Shadow Priest, you would have 5 or 6 different talent builds that you could play as that meaningfully change the kind of damage that you can do. I think this is their vision, at least. I don't know if this is necessarily good or bad. It definitely makes the game harder. But so yeah, I think that's what they're trying to do. Right now, that is definitely not the case. Right now, you've got like 3 maybe builds. And really, you do have some like variations of builds. Like you can play a single target build that uses Void Eruption, or you can play one that uses Dark Ascension. And really, the difference is not very big. And it's like you're basically doing all the same damage that you would be doing. There's just like a very small difference of where you press your buttons, which I mean is not enough. It's not distinct enough. It's not a distinct build like they're trying to make. I think it's interesting that they highlight critical damage as something that they're trying to make Shadow good at. And then PvP, I don't really PvP, so this doesn't matter too much for me, but for those of you who do, in Dragonflight, Shadow has had access to more instant cast spells through procs and cooldowns than ever before. Because it was difficult to prevent Shadow Priests from scoring kills, we reduced their damage in Season 1. We've removed some of the problematic procs and cooldowns moving into 10.1, so there is more counterplay to Shadow's offense. This allows us to ease up on some of the damage nerfs to the spec. We're looking forward to hearing your feedback on any changes we made, as well as any other thoughts you have about Shadow Priest. Thank you. So yeah, originally in the beginning of Dragonflight, Shadow was like crazy strong in PvP. So they nerfed the PvP modifiers on some of our abilities. For anyone who doesn't know, in PvP, your damage gets multiplied by some number to change how much it does. If you have a spell that does 10,000 damage against a monster, and then you cast it in PvP, it won't do 10,000 damage, or at least it's not guaranteed to do the same amount of damage. So you have this modifier, like they'll do 90% of its damage, or it'll do 80% of its damage, or something like that. And Shadow had a bunch of those modifiers on their spells in PvP, and they're basically just saying, we got rid of a lot of the reasons why we put those modifiers on there, so now we're taking those modifiers back off, and let us know if that was not the right choice, is basically what they're saying. So now let's look at the actual changes, aside from what they've talked about. I'll just read, I mean, there's like a lot of these, it goes all the way down to here, so I'll just read through them, and I'll only like talk about the ones that I really think are worth talking about. So first off, they removed a bunch of stuff. They removed Mindseer, Dark Void, Coalescing Shadows, Puppet Master, Harnessed Shadows, Pain of Death, Surge of Darkness. That's the instant cast Mind Spike proc, if I remember correctly, which them removing that makes me less happy that they're trying to put more emphasis on Mind Spike. And Damnation. This is one spell that I thought was really cool that I wish found more use cases, because it's an instant cast that puts all three of your dots up. It was really good in PvP, but it's a shame that it never had like a really good use in PvE. Anyway, they're getting rid of all those. Shadowy Insight no longer passively grants an additional charge of Mind Blast. That's your proc that gives you an instant cast Mind Blast. Shadowy Insight no longer temporarily increases the maximum charges of Mind Blast when it triggers. So instead of having 2, when you get a Shadowy Insight proc right now, you get a third that you can spend, and then you still have your 2. They're getting rid of that. Psychic Link now affects Devouring Plague and Shadow Word Death. This is super interesting. Psychic Link is now a 1-point talent and has been moved to Mindseer's location. Okay. Psychic Link has been reworded. Your damaging single target spells deal 40% of their damage to all other targets afflicted by your Vampiric Touch within 40 yards. Does not apply to damage from Shadow Word Pain and Vampiric Touch. So basically everything but these 2 spells. Every single target spell that's not one of your 2 dots, Shadow Word Pain or Vampiric Touch, will hit everything that has Vampiric Touch on it. So this is pretty interesting. I like this idea. I really like that they're making Devouring Plague be affected by Psychic Link. And the Shadow Word Death one could be interesting. This makes it so that, yeah, I mean, this doesn't change too much. It could be interesting because you have, like, if you've got 2 targets that are about to die in a pack of, like, 30 targets, you're going to be Shadow Word Deathing the ones that are about to die anyway. So this just gives you a little bit of like passive extra cleave, I guess, which is nice. It's not like it's going to change how you play really, because you're going to be you're trying to Shadow Word Death snipe stuff anyway. But maybe it makes it more of a AoE answer if you're doing like a 9 pull or something, a pack of 9 mobs, in a case where you might not use a Shadow Word Death because you want to be using Mindseer or something. Maybe you would press it now. So okay, so maybe there is a bit of a change there. I wonder if it being a 1-point talent means that they're gonna nerf it or change how much damage it does or anything. It doesn't sound like it. Auspicious Spirits now causes shadowy apparitions to have a chance to generate 2 insanity instead of always generating 1. This is something that Auspicious Spirits used to do, I'm pretty sure. Or maybe actually, back in the day, if your Shadowy Apparition crit, it gave you 2 Insanity, and it wasn't from Auspicious Spirits, but maybe it was from Auspicious Spirits. Anyway, this is a good change. Maddening Touch now increases the damage of Vampiric Touch by 10 or 20% and has a chance to generate 1 or 2 Insanity. Void Torrent, this is a big one. Void Torrent generates 24 Insanity over its duration, was 60. So, kind of yikes. I mean, Void Torrent did generate a ton of Insanity, and that was a bit of a problem where you can't press it unless you're below 35 or 30 Insanity without feeling like you're gonna overcap. And so nerfing it is probably a good move, but they nerfed it quite a lot. I mean, that's like 40% of what it used to be, I think. So that's, yeah, pretty big nerf. Shadow Crash generates 6 Insanity, was 15. That's also not great in my eyes. Although, yeah, no, I don't think so. I think that, yeah, I mean, it feels bad to overcap on Insanity, but I would rather have my abilities generate a lot of Insanity than not enough. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Shadow Crash no longer applies Vampiric Touch. I think this is a talent thing later on, so don't freak out about this yet. When I first read this, I was like, whoa, this is a terrible change, but I'm pretty sure they added a talent later that lets this happen. It's going to be really weird going from 8 targets getting Vampiric Touch on them from a Shadow Crash to none. Mind Devourer now has a 4% or 8% chance to grant a free cast of Devouring Plague, so they nerfed its percent by a lot. 40% again. Nerfed it by 60%. It's 40% of what it used to be. Mind Devourer now increases the damage of your next Devouring Plague by 8 or 15% when it triggers. So that's cool. Mind Melt no longer reduces the cast time of Mind Blast. Mind Melt is now a 2-point talent. Mind Melt increases the critical strike chance of Mind Blast by 10 or 20%. It was 25%, stacking up to 4 times, and it was 2. So if you have 2 points in Mind Melt and you get 4 stacks, you could be doing 80% extra critical strike chance on Mind Blast instead of at most 50 before. So that's a small buff to the top end, but the bottom end, 10% of... So if you have 1 stack and 1 point, you could get 10% instead of 25%, which was your minimum before. So they made the minimum lower and they made the maximum higher. Idol of Cthulhu can now trigger from Mind Spike and Void Torrent damage. That's interesting. Idol of Cthulhu now spawns a Void Lasher if there are more than 2 targets nearby, and otherwise spawns a Void Tendril. Okay, so basically, instead of being attached to whether you're casting Mind Flay or Mind Seer, it's just going to say, are there more than 2 targets nearby? Yes? Okay, I'm Mind Seering. If not, I'm Mind Flaying. Idol of Cthulhu, Mind Flay damage reduced by 20%. Mind Seer damage increased by 75%. Dang, that's a lot. So this will be interesting to see. Void Tendril and Void Lasher from Cthulhu generate 15 Insanity over their duration. It used to be 30, so they nerfed the Insanity generation in half. Mind Seer from Idol of Cthulhu now deals reduced damage beyond 5 targets. That sucks. I hate soft caps big time. Just let my AoE spells hit everything. The cast speed of Mind Seer from Idol of Cthulhu no longer scales with haste. That also sucks. Mind Flay and Mind Seer from Idol of Cthulhu, Echoing Void from Idol of N'Zoth, and Void Torrent now have 5% damage variance. I hate this. Damage variance is like so dumb in my eyes. I really, really hate it. Why should my spell do 5% less damage just because of RNG? If you play perfectly, you should do the exact same amount of damage as somebody else who plays perfectly, in my mind. There are already so many different factors that change how much damage a person does. Why do we need to have, oh, wow, I feel really good because I rolled a 5% extra damage roll. Wow, I got so lucky. Man, RNG is so great. No, RNG sucks. You're wrong. Get rid of it. That's my thoughts on that. Mind Spike now replaces Mind Flay. Okay, Mind Spike damage increased by 15%. Okay, Mind Flay Insanity has been renamed to Surge of Insanity. So it's still a Mind Flay, okay. Surge of Insanity generates 12 Insanity over its duration. Oh, no, it's not just a Mind Flay. It now empowers your next Mind Flay or Mind Spike. It now lasts 15 seconds. It was 10 seconds. It can now accumulate up to 2 charges. Mind Flay Insanity and Mind Spike Insanity have been added to the personal resource display. I think... I'm confused. Maybe Surge of Insanity gives you Mind Spike Insanity? Is that what they're saying? Or is this like they forgot that they call it Surge of Insanity and these are the two versions of the same thing, depending on whether you have Mind Flay or Mind Spike? I'm not sure. Anyway, if Mind Spike turns out to be something that's not just a cast, if they make Mind Spike a channel somehow, I will not like that. Screams of the Void has been redesigned. Devouring Plague causes your Shadow Word, Pain, and Vampiric Touch to deal damage 40 or 80% faster for 3 seconds. Okay. Mental Decay now also increases the duration of Shadow Word, Pain, and Vampiric Touch by 2 seconds when Mind Spike is cast. I like that. We're going to be casting a lot of Mind Spikes, I think, so making my dots last longer is good. Dark Evangelism can now also be triggered by Mind Spike. Okay. Insidious Ire now also affects Void Torrent damage. That's nice. New talent, Thought Harvester. Okay, so these are the new talents. Thought Harvester. Mind Blast gains an additional charge. So, does this mean that they're making Mind Blast only have 1 charge, and you have to take Thought Harvester to have 2 charges? Because if that's the case, I mean, there have been many times in the past where Mind Blast has had 1 charge, and people take talent that gives them 2 because it's just so much better. So if this is the case, boo, I don't like this. Whispering Shadows. Shadow Crash generates an additional 6 Insanity. So if we recall, it makes 6 now. It was 15. If you get the additional 6, it'll be 12 instead of 15. And applies Vampiric Touch to up to 8 targets it damages. So I don't know why you would ever not take this. Especially, well, in a pure single target situation, maybe not. But I know what, well, even then probably you would because of the additional Insanity. But I don't know why in an AoE situation you would ever not take this. Vampiric Touch synergizes with our damage like crazy if we're going to be focusing on Psychic Link. So why would you make it, why would you choose not to have a spell that gives you 8 Vampiric Touches for pressing 1 button instead of having to press 8 buttons to get 8 Vampiric Touches, right? I mean, you would like always take this. Void Touched increases your Devouring Plague damage by 6% and increases your maximum Insanity by 50. That's interesting. So does this mean that our max Insanity goes to 150 instead of 100? Because if they're saying that our max Insanity is 50 and this increases it to 100, then I don't like that. I mean, you would pretty much always take that, I think. But if this brings it from 100 to 150, that could be interesting. New talent, Mastermind, because with 150, you get 3 Devouring Plagues if you're maxed. But with just 100, you can only have 2. That's why it matters, right? And, yeah, I don't know. They're like, we're going to nerf all of your Insanity generators, but also increase how much space you have for Insanity. Like, this by itself, without nerfing Void Torrent or Shadow Crash Insanity generation, might be a pretty decent change. But the fact, like, 24, Void Torrent making 24 Insanity, giving you 24 Insanity when your max is 150, that's like not even a 6th, right? That's 1 below a 6th of your max Insanity, when right now it does 60%. That's a huge change. So yeah, you're going to go from pressing Void Torrent and basically filling your entire Insanity bar to pressing Void Torrent and like not noticing. And also, things that generate 6 Insanity when your max is 150? Like, what? That's crazy. That is like no Insanity, bro. Okay, so this will be interesting. Mastermind increases the critical strike chance of Mind Blast, Mind Flay, and Mind Spike by 2 or 4%, and increases their critical strike damage by 13 or 25%. So this will be interesting. Having things crit is always good. You'll get, I'm pretty sure you'll still get 2 apparitions from crits of Mind Blast, which is nice, and Mind Spike. So more crits is good. It'll be interesting to see if this makes us want to swap to haste crit instead of haste mastery, but I doubt it. New talent, Phantasmal Pathogen. Shadowy apparitions deal 75% or 150% increased damage to targets affected by your devouring plague. Ooh, I don't know about this one. Yeah, I'm not sure about this one. Because if we're gonna... So, shadowy apparitions... I mean, this is an okay single target thing. Like, in single target stuff, the thing that you're fighting is going to have Devouring Plague on it almost all the time, which means you're almost always going to be doing 150% increased damage from your shadowy apparitions, which is good. In AoE, though, I really just don't see us generating enough insanity these days with all these changes to have Devouring Plague on more than one thing consistently. Like, sure, maybe you get it on 2 and even 3 things at most if you're like in the middle of your CDs and you spend all 150 of your insanity at once to put Devouring Plague on 3 things. But even then, your Devouring Plague lasts, what, 6-8 seconds, something like that? So, I mean, how many apparitions are gonna spawn and get to your target by the time... Yeah, this is like pure single target in my eyes. I don't know why you would ever take this not for single target. I guess for priority damage a little bit, but even then. Mind's Eye reduces the insanity cost of Devouring Plague by 5. Why? I mean, it's so weird, you guys. I don't know why they do some of the things they do. So if this puts Devouring Plague down to 45 insanity, then at most you could have 3. If you have 150 as your max, you could have 3 Devouring Plagues still. This doesn't give you an extra Devouring Plague or anything. For 135 insanity, you could spend 3 Devouring Plagues. 135 insanity is still enough that I don't think you're ever going to really be having that much. And I could be entirely wrong. I mean, I haven't played this yet on the PTR or anything, so I could be completely wrong, and our insanity generation is just still really crazy, and we can meet this 150 max pretty easily, and reducing this insanity cost makes sense. But right now, I don't really know why. Like, I mean, it's nice that things cost less, but I don't really get why they did that. Throes of Pain generates 1 insanity per rank. It was 3 and 5. Now it's just 1 per rank. Okay, so I guess it's up to 2, right? Why did they not put 1/2 like they did before? Ancient Madness is now a 1-point talent. Dark Ascension and Void Eruption should now properly override the other on your action bar when swapping talents. This is a quality of life thing for sure. And then these last 2 are several nodes in the talent tree have changed position, and they updated the Shadow Priest starter build so that the talents make sense, right? Because they have a bunch of new talents and everything. So basically, that's all the changes. I think that 10.1 is on the PTR right now. I'm not positive. If it is, then I'll go check after this video and maybe make a video where I'm, going through some of this stuff. But that's basically all the changes. Those are my thoughts. I'm very interested to hear what your guys' thoughts are. Like I said before, if you want to watch the Dratnos interview, I'll leave a link to this video in the description. And if you want to read through these, or this article also has changes for every other class. So if you'd like to read through all of the 10.1 changes so far on the PTR patch notes, I'll leave a link to this as well in the description. But that's going to be it for me for today. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace!